Hello and welcome to my presentation in which I will be analyzing a text. The text is a news article that appears in the Washington Post, and the title is "In War, Russia has swallowed up Belarus. Freedom is at stake there too." At the beginning, I will identify genre, audience, and purpose, which are basic elements of SFL. This text is a news article. Its language is semi-academic and it promotes political views. All texts are addressing particular audiences, according to TESOL, and this article is interestingly addressing two audiences. It is a good example of mixed audiences. It's addressing the public, and also it might be addressing politicians or policy makers. Howe says that readers through schematic knowledge do half of the work for writers. And in this article, there can be some sort of schematic knowledge between the writer and the audience, since most of the readers know about the events that are going on nowadays in Ukraine. So I believe no need for over clarifying things, since the countries are known, the presidents are known. TESOL also says that every text has a purpose. This article might be another example of mixed purposes. So interdiscursivity is taking place here. Now, sometimes you feel that the article is informing readers of what's going on and of what future escalations that are possible. Also, it might be attempting to address the politicians and to mobilize the public opinion to act against what's going on. The article is speaking about the Belarusian president and how he manipulated the West and then allied with Russia, who used the Belarusian lands to attack Ukraine. Now, as a result of this, lots of countries announced sanctions, including Europe, the United States, Japan. And at the end of the article, the writer is explaining how democracy in Ukraine and freedom in general are targeted. The article is written from the perspective of a writer who is clearly against what Russia and Belarus are doing. Now I will move to features of academic discourse, and I'll begin with close relations. This paragraph is a good example of sequence relations in the form of chronological events. Now, things happening after another. Alexander Lukashenko ping-ponged, then Mike Pompeo grinned as he shook Mr. Lukashenko's hand. After that, Pompeo announced the United States was shipping a tanker full of oil, etc. This paragraph is an example of sequence relations, but this time it is a cause and effect relation. Mr. Putin is extracting his tribute. As a result of this, he is using troops to stage exercising in Belarus. Then troops remained in place. As a result, missiles and bombers are being launched from Belarus. And as a result of this attack, troops have moved through Belarus or remained there. I move now to examples of cohesive elements in the text, and I begin with repetition. Of course, repetition binds the text together and gives a natural flow to the sentences. Examples are simple repetition, like talk, Belarus, election, ellipsis, Russia and the West referred to as both, closed sets, Russia, Belarus, pronouns, Mr. Lukashenko referred to as him. Another example of cohesive elements in the text is the use of unspecific nouns, and they raise the expectations of the reader. Okay, now the first unspecific noun here is tribute, and it raises the reader's expectation to know what it is. Then the writer explains what it is in the following sentence. And the other example is the unspecific noun referendum, which also raises expectations that are then fulfilled by the writer. Another example of cohesive elements is logical progression, and also this gives cohesion and flow. Now the referendum revoked the pledge, and what is the normal result of this? Russia could move nuclear weapons. In the second example, if Mr. Lukashenko is going to enable Russia's misbegotten war, then what is the progression of this event or action? US sanctions on his regime match those on Russia. Another element of cohesive elements is change of agency, and this is very interesting. It is occurring here through shifting active or using active and passive and shifting agents, like the hopes were misplaced. Now, the writer wants to emphasize hopes. In the other highlighted example, Mr. Lukashenko stole the August 2020 presidential, and here Mr. Lukashenko comes first in the sentence, and the active is used, so that the writer can show how evil this guy is. Word choice is very interesting in the article, since most of the words are chosen to condemn Russia's assault and to condemn the Belarusian role in this. Words like ping-pong, fraud, swallowed, suppress, assault, eclipse, sanctions, very negative words. I move to grammatical choices, and here I present variation of sentence length. Now, in the first sentence, we have a long sentence full of details. Now, the writer wants to remind the reader every once in a while of the evil things that Lukashenko is doing. Now, the second example, look how short this sentence is. They must be stopped. Now, this is the last sentence in the article. It is short and decisive, and it's echoing and calling for a decisive act by the politicians and by the countries. Now, in this paragraph, an example of using the conjunction but in an unusual way, beginning a sentence. Now, this is very interesting. It gives flow to the text, and also it reinforces the idea of the first sentence. I believe this text is a very interesting one to be taught in the classroom. Now, one could use it to expand a student's vocabulary. Fine. Look at the verb ping-ponged. Very exciting. Confronted, misplaced, tribute, etc. Pledge, for example. Very interesting vocabulary items that students can learn. Now, also, this could be used in improving the students' writings. Now they can learn how repetition can be used like effectively, ellipsis, simple repetition, pronouns, and yeah, repetition and pronouns. Also, their writing can be improved by noticing the parallel structures used in this paragraph, uh, like verbs. Lukashenko stole, Mr. Lukashenko responded, and also pronouns and antecedents can be taught to the students, and especially uh, they can learn how to use pronouns in a clear way that makes the ideas clear, and how can they use, or sorry, how can they avoid like confusing the readers with lots of pronouns that come one after another. Thank you very much for your time. This is the references slide, and this is a link to the article. Thank you again. Thank you.